Hello, inviting shift. So we're doing honoring our gifts, and I admit I'm a little late on getting this one out on the live version. So this is all about challenging relationships, and it was supposed to be day 12, and I'm a little late. So, but I did want to record this, and I did want to make sure that you really saw the gift in challenging relationships. And so if you're reading this and you're like, how do I honor those gifts, those challenging relationships? And I'm sure that if you're like me, you are sick of the positive Pollyanna and just making up stuff and pretending that, there's these insincere gifts that you're getting. And that's not what I want us to do. When it comes to the challenging situation gifts, when it comes to the challenging relationships, whatever it is, challenging characteristics we have about ourselves, I want us to really embrace them sincerely. So there are 3 ways that I have learned to embrace some gifts from challenging relationships, even when I struggle finding those gifts. One of the gift is just getting clear on what it is that I'm struggling with, right? What kind of personality or what kind of belief systems do I really struggle with understanding or getting along with? What kind of personalities do I really struggle with? And, the bigger gift is why? Why do I struggle with certain personalities? Because we all know that there's things that we don't like but don't really bother us, but then there's other things that we don't like and they really bother us. And I have learned that there are 3 reasons why these things would bother you, and so we're going to go through them really, really quickly. And I just want you to think about those challenging relationships as we go through these. What are those characteristics? What's the struggle in the relationship? If you could just take a moment. Take your deep breath, put your feet on the ground, feel yourself grounded, or if your butt's on the ground, just feel your grounding wherever you are. Maybe you're at work and experiencing one of those challenging relationships right now. Maybe you're thinking about them because family time is coming up, and so holidays are coming up and you might be spending more time with somebody who's a little bit more challenging. Just think about those, what are those characteristics or those personalities that you really struggle with, those judgments that you have about that other person or whatever that challenge is. And now we're going to go through the 3 reasons why I have found that people challenge us. And the first one is crossing boundaries. So if there's some type of expectation of how you expect somebody else to act, and it's contractual, right? So that's the important thing, is that it's contractual. So obviously if my spouse, who I am in a monogamous relationship with, I've taken vows, I would be very upset if they cheated on me, because that is crossing a boundary. Or, if we told each other that we would be honest with each other, that's crossing a boundary. So what are those boundaries that they're crossing, and have you made those clear? Because sometimes there's less, smaller things than, oh, they cheated on me. Maybe they didn't tell me they were going to go hang out and have that extra beer and said they would be home by 9 and they really meant 11. So those are little minor things, or I don't know, I don't want to call them minor, but they're not as written as a contractual agreement, a marriage license or something like that, where you have promised certain conditions on a relationship. And this can go for any relationship that you have with coworkers. If there's a coworker that is constantly committing to a certain deadline so that you can get your work done, or how to plan your work, and yet they're not meeting their commitments, that is a boundary crosser, right? Because you want them to be accountable just like you would be accountable. So consider that as one of the things that you have challenges with, is whether or not they're crossing boundaries. And the solution to that is really to make your boundaries clear. If it's not something that's already down in contract, then you need to make your boundaries clear. If it is something down in contract, then it's time to have a conversation about how they feel about your relationship, because there were certain things that you agreed to and they're not being followed. So that would take a little bit more of a conversation. Can't solve that one. But perhaps it is just about making your boundaries clear, because sometimes other people's perception of what a certain relationship is isn't necessarily, the truth. In their eyes, they may see it completely different. We have to remember our perspectives are completely different. So the second thing is that they remind us of ourselves, and I really dislike this one, because it means that whatever I'm seeing in them, I know I have a propensity of doing. So if I see selfishness in someone else, I know it's because I know what it's like to feel selfish. Even if I am seen as the most selfless person, it's not about what we actually are. It's about those qualities that we don't like about ourselves that might come up one in a million years, or, once a day. Who knows? But whether we are suppressing that characteristic about ourselves and we're choosing to be as selfless as we can in life, if we see that selfish piece, if that is a piece for us that is triggering, that is going to trigger us no matter where we see it. So we just have to make sure that, what is it about them, and do I have the ability to have compassion for that, even, not just for them, but for myself. So if I took selfishness as a piece, can I be okay with the piece of me that is self-preserving? Instead of calling it selfishness, let's talk about what it really is. It's self-preserving. There may be off balance. Some people seem to be a lot more self-preserving than others. And there's probably somewhere in between where there's a balance of us preserving ourselves and giving to society. So we have to look at, what does that mean for me? And is it okay for me that, they're doing whatever they're doing, and why not? So the gift could be in finding that piece about yourself and accepting that piece about yourself, so that you can understand more. You can be more open to having conversations with people that you consider selfish, to really get to know them and understand them. And then probably you might change your mind, you may not change your mind, but either way, you might have some compassion for them. And then, in return, it's like cyclical. Either way, if we have more compassion for our own humanity, we'll have more compassion for other people's, and vice versa. So compassion is the answer to the second one, which is they remind us of ourselves. And the third one that I want to talk about is they remind you of someone who has done something to you in the past, or somebody that you have unfinished business with, somebody who triggers you. So if I know someone who acts like, let's say there was an aunt that I didn't like when I was growing up. I thought that they were mean, or that they were critical. If I come across a personality, or sometimes even just somebody who looks like them, maybe represents the age they were when we had those challenges with them, that will come up again, right? If we feel that same energy, that might come up with current people, even though it has nothing to do with them. And so we have to step back and ask ourselves, is this person really challenging us in the same way? Or is this something that I'm kind of making stories up because it reminds me so much of this other person? So it happens especially with our parents. If you had a raging father, if you have a boss that also gets angry and ragey all the time, or manipulates you, you might feel that represents that. And you may not connect it. So this is about really sitting down and asking yourself, what does this mean for me? What is this challenge? And, the gift is that you get to better understand that relationship, whether or not that person has passed, the original person who had triggered you has passed. There is some way that you can honor this gift, right? Thank you for letting me see this part of myself, and and what maybe it's what you don't want to be, or, why you act in certain ways, what you can learn of that. So in challenging relationships, we often learn more than we do in those relationships that are easier, that, people want to be supportive, people want to be your cheerleader, people want to really connect to you on a deep level. The challenging relationships are often where I learn a lot about myself. It's not so much about that relationship, but there is benefit in having a clear relationship, because we can really step into somebody else's perspective. And the overall thing is to remember that our relationships, we're responsible for our half. On challenging relationships, we're not responsible for what the other half does. We can't really control that. We can't do anything about that. We can model how we want to be treated. We can model good characteristics, whatever we feel is that good characteristic. We can model how we want to be treated, basically, and then make clear boundaries. So those are the 3 things that I would like you to really maybe investigate about your challenging relationships. If you're struggling to see the gifts in them, or they feel like very insincere, positive Pollyanna gifts that you're like, oh, great, I learned what kind of person I didn't want to be, ha, ha, ha. That's not what this is about. We want to honor the true gifts that we've gotten from these challenging relationships. And this is where the true gift perspective comes in. It's a little bit more challenging. It takes a little bit of work, and this is where the personal growth happens. This is how we make future relationships better, how we stay open to the love and the support and the connection to people that aren't exactly like us. And that helps us really explore other perspectives. And it's one way, of course, that we invite shifts. So I hope that this was helpful. I'm sorry it was late for those of you who are doing this the first time live through. And let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. InvitingShift.com, and you can find us on Facebook under Inviting Shift Groups and the page. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.